Determine main idea and details. Light and circadian rhythm. We live in an increasingly 24/7 society, with work, family, and social pressures all chipping away at our sleep. Couple this with long work hours, shift work, chronic caffeine use and exposure to the glow of computer screens late into the night, and it may be much more than sleep that suffers. We may also be throwing off the body clock, or circadian rhythm, and its control of hundreds of body processes that keep us healthy and feeling well. While much is yet to be learned, there is growing evidence that a misaligned body clock can contribute not only to sleep problems, but also increase risk of developing diabetes, depression, obesity, and even some forms of cancer. For the past 60 years, neuroscientists have been studying the role of light in regulating the body's circadian rhythm. Since the early days of studying sleep in caves and underground laboratories, we've been able to determine that light exposure is the great circadian regulator. Most of us naturally have a body rhythm a little longer than 24 hours, and light is the major environmental time cue that resets the clock in our brains each day so that we remain synchronized with the 24-hour day. In turn, the clock regulates our sleep and wake cycle, our mood, alertness, and performance patterns, hormones, heart rate, and many other functions. Benefits of wind energy. Ancient mariners used sails to capture the wind and explore the world. Farmers once used windmills to grind their grains and pump water. Today, more and more people are using wind turbines to wring electricity from the breeze. Over the past decade, wind turbine use has increased at more than 25% a year. Still, it only provides a small fraction of the world's energy. Most wind energy comes from turbines that can be as tall as a 20-story building and have 3 200-foot-long blades. These contraptions look like giant airplane propellers on a stick. The wind spins the blades, which turn a shaft connected to a generator that produces electricity. Other turbines work the same way, but the turbine is on a vertical axis and the blades look like a giant egg beater. The biggest wind turbines generate enough electricity to supply about 600 U.S. homes. Wind farms have tens and sometimes hundreds of these turbines lined up together in particularly windy spots, like along a ridge. Smaller turbines erected in a backyard can produce enough electricity for a single home or small business. Wind is a clean source of renewable energy that produces no air or water pollution. And since the wind is free, operational costs are nearly zero once a turbine is erected. Mass production and technology advances are making turbines cheaper, and many governments offer tax incentives to spur wind energy development. Some people think wind turbines are ugly and complain about the noise the machines make. The slowly rotating blades can also kill birds and bats, but not nearly as many as cars, power lines, and high-rise buildings do. The wind is also variable. If it's not blowing, there's no electricity generated. Nevertheless, the wind energy industry is booming. Globally, generation more than quadrupled between 2000 and 2006. Germany has the most installed wind energy capacity, followed by Spain, the United States, India, and Denmark. Development is also fast growing in France and China. Industry experts predict that if this pace of growth continues, by 2050 the answer to 1/3 of the world's electricity needs will be found blowing in the wind. Determine main idea and details. Extra. Sleep-wake disorder. What happens to your sleep and circadian rhythms if you can't see light? To answer this question, my colleagues and I at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston have studied sleep and circadian rhythms in totally blind patients for more than 20 years. A majority of this population suffers from a little-known but highly disruptive condition called non-24-hour sleep-wake disorder that robs them of the ability to keep in sync with society's 24-hour schedule. Current research to develop a substitute time cue to reset the body clock in this group, if successful, would not only change their lives, but also help understand the mysteries of circadian rhythms and how they impact all of our lives. Without the daily reset that light provides, the body clock essentially runs on its own internal clock time, usually putting the person to sleep later and later each day. Eventually, Sleep is pushed into the daytime, causing overwhelming daytime sleepiness and chronic insomnia at night for sometimes months at a time, before being pushed all the way around the clock, and starting all over. Treating a serious sleep disorder. Sufferers with non-24, which is estimated to afflict up to 95,000 totally blind people in the US, say it's like having never-ending jet lag. They are often so sleepy that they fall asleep in mid-sentence or simply can't get out of bed. They find it extremely difficult to be on time and stay awake at work, attend school, pursue interests, or just plan dinner or drinks with family and friends. Help is on the horizon, however. My institution is involved in one of the largest clinical programs ever undertaken to determine if an intervention other than light can safely and predictably regulate the body clock in totally blind people with non-24. Previously, in much smaller studies, we and others had shown that daily treatment with a synthetic version of the hormone melatonin could reset the circadian clock. Sold as a dietary supplement, melatonin comes in many strengths, preparations, and levels of purity and has not undergone the rigorous safety tests that are required for FDA-approved medications. Determining when to take it, or the best dose and preparation to use, was tricky and is still not clear. There is an effort underway, however, to test a drug for non-24 that works like melatonin. These studies are designed to determine whether this treatment is effective, how and when it should be taken, and whether or not it is safe, based on FDA guidelines. My lab is involved in these studies, which are still underway at the moment. The promise of an approved drug intervention that can reset the clock of patients with non-24 would mean that those affected would be able to live on a normal day-night cycle, with all the health and social benefits that would entail. We would also have important new information that can help further our understanding of the broader role of the circadian clock, or the consequences of a mistimed clock. We can look at ways to address other serious circadian rhythm disorders, including shift work, frequent travel across time zones, and delayed sleep phase syndrome. This research may also contribute to the emerging field of chronomedicine, understanding when is the best time to take medicines for best results. Greater control of the circadian system can help us understand the extent to which it maintains our overall health and well-being, and help to regulate complex metabolic systems that, if disrupted, can increase the risk of disease. Circadian alignment may even one day be evaluated routinely as an important indicator of overall health. In medicine, as in much of life, timing is everything. Endangered birds. My dear Mr. Chapman, I need hardly say how heartily I sympathize with the purposes of the Audubon Society. I would like to see all harmless wild things, but especially all birds, protected in every way. I do not understand how any man or woman who really loves nature can fail to try to exert all influence in support of such objects as those of the Audubon Society. Spring would not be spring without bird songs, any more than it would be spring without buds and flowers, and I only wish that besides protecting the songsters, the birds of the grove, the orchard, the garden, and the meadow, we could also protect the birds of the seashore and of the wilderness. The loon ought to be, and, under wise legislation, could be a feature of every Adirondack lake. Ospreys, as everyone knows, can be made the tamest of the tame, and terns should be as plentiful along our shores as swallows around our barns. A tanager or a cardinal makes a point of glowing beauty in the green woods, and the cardinal among the white snows. When the bluebirds were so nearly destroyed by the severe winter a few seasons ago, the loss was like the loss of an old friend, or at least like the burning down of a familiar and dearly loved house. How immensely it would add to our forests if only the great logcock were still found among them. The destruction of the wild pigeon and the Carolina parakeet has meant a loss as severe as if the Catskills or the Palisades were taken away. When I hear of the destruction of a species, I feel just as if all the works of some great writer had perished, as if we had lost all instead of only part of Polybius or Livy. Very truly yours, Brown v. Board of Education. Today, education is perhaps the most important function of state and local governments. T is a principal instrument in awakening the child to cultural values, in preparing him for later professional training, and in helping him to adjust normally to his environment. In these days, it is doubtful that any child may reasonably be expected to succeed in life if he is denied the opportunity of an education. Such an opportunity, where the state has undertaken to provide it, is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms. We come then to the question presented: does segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race, even though the physical facilities and other tangible factors may be equal, deprive the children of the minority group of equal educational opportunities? We believe that it does. To separate from others of similar age and qualification solely because of their race generates a feeling of inferiority as to their status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely ever to be undone. The effect of this separation on their educational opportunities was well stated. Segregation of white and colored children in public schools has a detrimental effect upon the colored children. The impact is greater when it has the sanction of the law, for the policy of separating the races is usually interpreted as denoting the inferiority of the Negro group. A sense of inferiority affects the motivation of a child to learn. Segregation with the sanction of law, therefore, has a tendency to the educational and mental development of Negro children and to deprive them of some of the benefits they would receive in a racially integrated school system. We conclude that in the field of public education the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. 2. From Sleep Research in the Blind May Help Us All by Stephen Lockley, Ph.D., copyright 2012. 4. From Sleep Research in the Blind May Help Us All by Stephen Lockley, Ph.D. copyright 2012.